Okay, well, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lawrence O'Toole from Authoritas, and we've got two great speakers with us today. Also with Authoritas, running the slides, running the show is Carrie. So without further ado, let me introduce our two speakers. No particular order, but Himani, since you're top of the screen, it's Himani Kankaria from eCommerce, all the way over from India. So thank you so much for joining us. And
Hey.
Thanks, Himani. And Charlie Williams, all the way from, I don't know, you're in the Thames Valley somewhere, aren't you, Charlie?
I'm in Oxford.
There you go. Lovely Oxford. So I would delight you could both join us here this afternoon. What we're going to get into today is talk about optimizing your e-commerce store. Now, Charlie and Himani are old hands at doing Tea Time SEO, so we're delighted you've come back and to share your skills, knowledge, and know-how again with our growing audience all around the world. And yeah, we certainly don't take it for granted. I know these are short, powerful talks meant to give some actionable advice, but I know how much effort goes into each one of them. So thanks very much, guys. So, okay, so let's get cracking. I think, Charlie, if you could just maybe introduce yourself, Himani, then introduce yourself, and then I think Charlie's going to kick us off. So, Charlie, over to you.
Hi everyone, thank you for that introduction, Lawrence. So yeah, hi, I'm Charlie. I'm a independent SEO consultant, I guess is my official thing. I work in SEO and content design, and I've been a independent consultant for coming up for 4 years in October, I think it is, working under the name Chop Digital, but it's just me. It sounds much grander than it is. I've been working in SEO for a long time, for about 14 years, which is a pretty long time for SEO, I suppose. I've done jobs in all kinds of places. I've got to work with some amazing teams over the years, and more recently I've worked with a few e-commerce brands, which is what I'm going to try and draw on today a little bit to talk around that, some of the things I've learned from working with some really good e-commerce brands here in the UK.
Perfect. Thanks, Charlie. And Himani?
Hey everyone. I am Himani Kankaria, and I'm an e-commerce content strategist at eCommerce, where we focus on preparing strategies and roadmaps for all the segments of e-commerce, and we help them, position right in the market and use the different content-driven commerce campaigns and boost some good numbers in revenue. That is something which is, I would say that it's my one hat. Another hat is a content driven marketing consultant for B2B organizations, specializing on content and SEO. I'm also a speaker at SEMrush, Brighton SEO, White Spark, Meet Magento Indonesia, and there's a Tea Time SEO as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Himani. Okay, well, Charlie, there's a picture of some records. I haven't seen those for a while. Why don't you kick it off?
All right. Yeah. So thank you. So the reason there's a picture of records is because I used to work in a record store. That's what I used to do. I used to work in record shops in retail when I was younger, before I learned how to work in SEO quite by accident. And one of the things for me is that I really like e-commerce in SEO. I think it's a really exciting part of SEO, from helping solve complex technical and crawling issues to producing content at scale to helping smaller sites find their niche and grow. So in that spirit, I want to share some tips on how to make a better store. As I used to, work in retail, one thing I learned was the difference between a good shopping experience and a poor shopping experience is often the staff and the layout. Online, your online store is your shop, and when it comes to your SEO, your site architecture and your technical elements are your layout, your navigation and links, or the layout for the signposting of the store for users or for shoppers, and your content is your staff, giving people information to let users make good purchasing decisions. So that's why when it comes to my tips, I want to talk a little bit about how to do these things. So 3 things that I've been working a lot on with e-commerce brands, I'd say over the last 18, 24 months or so. These 3 things you can see on screen. So helping users make good customer choices. How can you make it easy to find your advice? Signposting your store, is it easy to see what you sell? And making the most of your discontinued products, which is something I think a lot of sites don't really manage the process of. Now, the second one of those actually is covered really well in Authoritas's e-commerce guide. They've already got a guide in place from a previous Tea Time talk. There's some great advice in there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the next two, if that's okay. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is discontinued products. Plan out how you're going to manage this. A lot of stores just don't have it. I'm working with one client at the moment who have around 500 products live at any one time, but they've got 20,000 pages indexed because all their old products from the last 5 to 10 years are all still live. And sometimes it's actually causing a real problem. You go into Search Console. I couldn't do a screen grab of this for obviously privacy reasons, but you can actually see that sometimes they release a new product, which is very similar slug and description to the previous product from a couple of years ago, and because it's almost identical in terms of URL, in terms of content, in terms of code, Google is actually struggling sometimes to know which one's indexed, and it's calling one a duplicate of the other. So sometimes new products aren't getting indexed. So managing this process is really important, but you don't just want to follow a blind yes or no kind of process. This is actually quite a good one I've got on screen here, but you can be more nuanced in your market. What works in your sector? Now, on the next slide, I've got an example here of a discontinued product page. And actually, they haven't done anything with it. It's just out of stock. It just sits there. Nothing happens with it. This isn't a client. This is just one I found. Now, is there something more clever we can do with this page if they're going to keep it live? Is there something we can do to improve the customer journey? Plan this out. I haven't got time to go into it. You could do an hour's talk just on this. But think about the kind of cases. If customers still use this page, should you keep it live but maybe no index it so the customer experience is really good, but you're not spending time trying to worry about is this page is going to be indexed or not? Can you change the template so that it says this is discontinued, but here's our closest equivalent products? If there's some value around this page for SEO, links or things like that, can we redirect it to the closest one? Again, don't want to do it too much because of soft 404s. And if there's no value, what I'd say, especially if you're dealing with millions of products or thousands of products, constantly coming and going, consider using 410s rather than letting them 404. 410 says it means that as a server response means a page is gone, so it's quicker to be de-indexed. And as a website, you can present a different 410 page to your 404 page. So if you save 410s for pages, products that have gone, you can say, sorry, this product's no longer available, and give some points, put a search bar in there or send people to the closest places they can find other products as well. It's a really great article on screen here from Content King. This is a great article about discontinued products, partly because it's got some brilliant advice generally, but also they've got lots of quotes from great SEO experts on this, and they don't always agree about exactly the way you should handle discontinued products, and that's because there is no right or wrong way. There's smart ways and bad ways, but there's no right or wrong. There's lots of ways of going about it. So be smart with your discontinued products and use them as a merchandising opportunity. Don't just lose them. Use them as a way to still connect with your customers. You don't want them to come to your website, find out it's not available, and then leave again. Use it to convert and do something else. Now, when it comes to improving product pages themselves, one thing, at least I used to get asked quite a lot, is can't we just copy Amazon? And the answer is we can, but maybe not in the way you're thinking of just put the price really high, follow their buttons and things like that. There's more we can do. So the first thing I want to say is use better images. More images that make it easy to see and the product itself, and add contextual information about that product itself. You often get told in SEO guides have lots of photos of your product with a blank background. And that can be good, but it's actually also useful to have images of that product in use or in situation or compared to the size of other products of a similar type. Make it clear what it is you're buying, because people can't pick it up as they can do in store and understand the context of the product. And use videos. This is ASOS. A lot of clothing stores do this really well, but they have a video in their image gallery. And apparently images make videos make understanding a product or service much easier. 74% an increase in understanding, in fact. So if you can do that, it's a huge advantage to have a video in there. And answer common shopping questions in terms of what it's like to shop from you. So in this case, I've got AO.com on screen here, and immediately you land on any product page and I can see when it can be delivered, what other services I can buy at the same time. In this case, an oven, I can see that I can have my previous one removed. I can see I can buy it on finance, and I can see I can do 100-day returns. I don't have to leave the page and go to your FAQs or scroll anywhere. Bang, immediate information, easy to shop. I've also got a link to the product data sheet. They link to a PDF rather than linking just the product specifications lower down the page, which I would do, but it answers the question, in this case, an oven, is it going to fit? Because I can see the dimensions really quickly. You can see that's, and the key features just in the screen grab higher up. That's really important information. So make it easy to shop with you by answering those common shopping questions. Next, I do want to start using Amazon. I do want to start using Amazon, but not in the way people might expect. So I'm going to start scraping Amazon and analyzing it to learn from other customers and use their language. I can do this in the questions and I can do it in the reviews. And what I'm looking for is patterns, either patterns of 2, 3, 4 word phrases that are used a lot, grab all the content and analyze that to find the 2, 3, 4 word pattern terms in there to see what often gets used. Or I'm looking for common emotive or use phrases that people use. So I understand what's important. What I want to do is I want to connect with my customers who are shopping for this type of product by using the language they do to understand what they find important, what they're using the product for, what kind of use case they're doing. It's really easy, even if you don't know the products that well, to learn what's important for people when they're buying this by analysing what the people are writing. In this case, I'm using Amazon. I'm looking at cast iron pans. I'm looking at a really popular one by Lodge. I know too much about cast iron pans. I'm looking at this one here. And there's over 100 questions and there's 40,000 reviews. 40,000 reviews seems a little suspicious, but still I can analyze this content and learn stuff from it. So here I've got questions. When is this, is this pan pre-seasoned? What's it pre-seasoned with? There's 2 questions asking about the width of the base, so like how big is the cooking area? Is it compatible with an induction hob? For all my different product categories, if there's common questions people ask, answer those common questions about this product category in the product description for it. Simple, massive advantage, more content and more helpful. On the next slide, I've got reviews here as well. And what's brilliant about the reviews of Amazon these days is they do some language processing for us. You can filter reviews by that mention different phrases. In this case, that mention frying pan or mention value for money or mention last forever. I start actually seeing, without even reading the reviews, what the common phrases people use are. I can use this language to start speaking in the customer's language so it makes my product copy more appealing. And they've always that section on the left-hand side about where you can sort of click by feature, and it says here heat, distribution, durability, etc. It's doing language analysis for us, which is fantastic. Thank you, Amazon, doing work for me. You want to be that in-store expert. I said about, your content being in-store expert. I'm looking here at paint. Not very exciting, but I'm looking at paint and I'm scared of DIY. I always get it wrong. So if I'm looking at the paint, how do I know if I'm buying the right paint or if it's the right kind of thing? Is it going to do the job for me? Well, B&Q, lower down here, they actually have some content about the other things I'll need. So if I'm doing painting on new plaster, I'll need some plaster sealer with it and stuff like that. They're actually describing some of the processes I'll go about with this. What else do I need to know to use this particular type of paint? That's really helpful. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you, this is what they used to have. Halfway down the page, between the description and the reviews, they used to have links to really helpful guides. They still have the guides, they don't link to them anymore, unfortunately. But it's like how to paint a wall, interior paint buying guide. They're showing me the content that's going to reassure me and help me make a buying decision to know I'm choosing the right paint to do the job, and maybe buy some brushes and things like that as well, upselling, because it's got that expert content in place. Now, there's loads of ways of finding what this expert content could be. You can use keyword tools. Now here I've got Ahrefs, and I can use the keyword trend theme match, and I can use the question match terms to find here. There's lots of questions about cleaning cast iron pans and about seasoning them. These are 2 problems with cast iron pans. Expert content I can build on the back of that. Next, I also have the same kind of thing from Systrix, which has got a bunch of keyword ideas based around questions. This has got, how can you tell if a cast iron pan's good? How can you tell a good quality one from a poor quality one? And bizarrely enough, 3 questions about whether eggs will stick to a cast iron frying pan or not. So maybe I could write something about, this cast iron pan is so good, it will even not stick to your eggs. There you go. And there's also Authoritas's frequently asked question explorer, which does this as well and helps you group things by, are they transactional, are they commercial questions, etc. So there's a good selection of ways for you to find questions at scale on any topic to help you write expert content. And you don't want to just stick to your sort of commercial competitors when you're looking for inspiration. Look at the market as a whole. If I'm trying to sell cast iron pans, I'm competing against anyone talking about cast iron pans. Here's an article from Serious Eats, which is explaining myths that need to die about cast iron pans. In other words, cast iron pan care questions. That's what this is really about. And I want to write about that cast iron care because I know my customers potentially care about that and want to make sure they understand how to use it before they buy. I'm reassuring them just as I would as if I had a member of staff in store. And find your experts in-house. There's people in your business that are probably going to be really good at understanding your customers' questions. And don't just use them to understand perhaps what you should be writing about. Maybe find those people in-house who can help you actually write the content. Even if they don't literally type it out for you, you can interview them, you can talk to them, you can find out what they know about your individual products that's really good or really not, and use that information, get their expertise from their brain onto your page. By fair means or foul, just do it somehow, get their expertise onto your pages. This can work as a massive advantage when it comes to SEO, because this is, I'll just give you an example here. This is the Wine Society. You go to their website, they've got one section in the main navigation about discovery, which is the informational part. Everything else is about buying wines. But on the next slide, what I've got here is a list of their top ranking pages, the top performing pages, say, in the UK. These are the ones that drive nearly all their traffic. So apart from the homepage, everything else that drives traffic for them is their guide content. It's not about buying wines. It's about how to choose the right wines. It's about grape brewers. It's about regions of France that produce wines. It's all this expert content that's actually driving people to the site. And that's how they make their money. So it's, while you always want to rank well with commercial terms as well, don't just think of this expert content as a way of upselling or guiding people. It can also be the starting point as well. And if you don't want to do it for me or do it for your customers, do it for Google. We've seen the stuff here, the quality rater guidelines, talking a lot about expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. There's sections here about what high quality shopping pages look like. And there's also, of course, the blog post more recently about what's doing core updates, the questions you ask yourself. It's about high quality stuff. That's it. Thank you. Hit me up with any questions in the optimizers, or you can grab me on these channels. And that's enough from me.
Charlie, that's great. Thank you so much. Jam-packed with useful insights and help and advice there. So thank you for that. I've got a million questions, but we'll save them till after Himani's chat. For people watching online, if you've got some questions, get them in now. Himani, over to you.
Okay, wonderful. That was great. And now that you have learned everything about how you can improvise your e-commerce store in terms of UX, as well as talking about customers' language and utilizing it in so powerful way that it can help you grab more conversions. But let me remind you that that is not, that is the one part of the optimization. Next comes the thing is the intent of buying is higher when users come from search engines. So what happens is when people are searching for you, your brands and your products and your services, they are actually looking to buy. Because what happens is that, there are a lot of challenges that we e-commerce SEOs face. Let me talk, that the SEO game is different for all D2C brands, marketplaces, niche brands. They all have, a different set of SEO activities to be utilized when it comes to optimizing e-commerce store. But certainly we all face some of the common challenges. Those could be, let me share only the 3 common challenges which is faced by all of the e-commerce SEOs. Number 1 is competition. We face competition from industry leaders, direct and organic competitors, marketplaces, and our own listings on marketplaces. Another challenge that we all face is it is through the brand awareness, which has moved from organic to social media platforms. If you can see that this statistics talk about that more than 3 out of 4, which is 77% of weekly pinners, have discovered a new product or brand on Pinterest, which means that now if someone is searching on Google, which means they are ready to buy. They are not looking for new products. They are not looking for new brand. They have just came with a particular, a product in mind, which they want to buy. Another challenge that we face is that keywords now have mixed intent, informative as well as buying. You can see the screen grab, which I took from Andy's tweet, which talks about that if someone types in vitamin C zinc on search, they would probably look to buy vitamin C tablets with zinc in it, right? But that's not the case now. When he showcased a few screen grabs on his Twitter handle, it was like that, most of the people landed on search just to find the information and not buy them, right? So these are the three challenges which we face, and that's where we come to know that we need to use the power of content in optimizing our e-commerce store. But why would we do that? We would do that for 4 reasons. One, to be present when customers are researching more about your products. Usually that happens during the consideration stage. We talked about brand awareness, right? Brand awareness is happening on social media. Now, one step above in the marketing funnel is to have the consideration stage. So when a person is already knowing about your products, they would move ahead and would look to learn more about your products. Next is to make your store a go-to resource for your target audience and influencers. Another is to help search engines understand what your page is all about. Another is have more content pointing to the targeted category and product pages. We know that from SEO point of view, right? Another and the last, but the most important benefit of using the power of content is to stand strong in SERPs for a longer period of time. So that's now we know that we need to use the power of content. Let's identify the 6 steps that we would need to utilize. Let's begin with the first step. Let's identify what are keywords that our competitors are using and even we are using, but we might have missed them. We might have not optimized them, or maybe we need to optimize them more, right? So that's where we need to begin with the keyword gap analysis. Take up Authoritas. Authoritas has a wonderful keyword gap analysis feature available where we can identify, the keywords that we need to improve on. Next step is that once we have identified all of these keywords, we need to export that file into a CSV or an XLS file, and we need to update that file or upload it on the Keyword Insights tool. That's a wonderful tool that helps us identify the search intent. Why we are doing this? We want to bifurcate the money keywords and the blog keywords. Money by money keywords, I believe you understand that it's a transactional keywords, and blog would have the informational search intent. So with this, what we need to identify is from the long list of 40,000 of keywords, we want to identify for what all keywords Google has the, people searching for a particular product or some kind of information. So if you look into this screen grab, you would be able to understand there are 2 keywords which has the balanced of product category and articles, which means you could balance out between your product page or category page with a blog page. But in 2 other cases, you can clearly see that the keywords has the highest transactional intent. That becomes your money keywords. Those money keywords can be bifurcated further into 2 more categories. One is for category pages and second is the product pages. So now what we are going to do is we are going to move in the step 3. Our step 3 talks about optimizing the category pages. Now the keywords with transactional intent needs to be bifurcated, and you need to come up with the keywords for which you want to optimize your category pages. So you need to use those keywords in banners with say H1 tags and H2 tags and all of those SEO tags you focus on, right? So that is one portion. Another is to come up with a crisp and a content which talks the customer's language as suggested by Charlie. It is like wonderful way to talk what your customers speak, right? So I have brought this screen grab from an e-commerce brand that is completely on t-shirt for men, but because they are completely into Supima cotton t-shirts, they have highlighted that particular keyword in their category page. Next step is to optimize the product detail page. Obviously, after optimizing the category pages, next is to optimize the product detail pages. Same way, we have to optimize the product detail pages, SEO tags, H1, H2, title, meta description, image alt, and everything. On the top of that, you need to optimize your product descriptions. You might see a screen grab from one of my articles on Search Engine Journal that talks about 13 tips for writing product descriptions that convert. I have included almost everything that can, adds everything around keyword as well as the buyers, for the searchers as well as the buyers and the search engines. You need to add FAQs as suggested by Charlie. You need to look into the ways where people come up with questions. Next is, once you have done with optimizing the product detail page, you need to use the keywords that you bifurcated for block keywords. You need to utilize all of those block keywords, and you need to plan a content calendar using all of those block keywords. Here is the template that I have shared, which I particularly use and share it with all of our e-commerce clients. And what we do is that we plan entire thing right from keywords, topics, to how many words, and when it will be published. Everything is available in this template, which you can copy and use. The link is at the below. You need to create the blogs, focusing on keywords as well as key buyers. The last step is very, very important. It is, the planning is done, the research is done, you made the UX and everything in place. Now, the last step is to optimize the blogs for traffic, because, writing content and publishing is just the 20% of the content thing. Rest 80% is to distribute it. So optimize those blogs again and again so that it reaches to the page one, and then on the different sub features like featured snippets and everything to drive traffic. And then ultimately they convert as your customers. So now let me go through, let me help you go through with the quick tips that I want to share with you that will help you save some time. While your dev team is working, on implementing the technical SEO tickets, work on your content calendar. While your writers are writing, optimize your category and product detail pages. Spare 2 and 3 hours weekly to optimize the already published blogs every month. Make them rank on featured snippets or similar SERP features to help Google consider it to be the most authoritative sites for your audience. And that's how we do optimize the websites for e-commerce clients and see the rankings and the traffic going up and help them convert faster. That's all from my end. I guess, Lawrence, you're on mute.
I'm muting myself because my dog woke up. My puppy woke up, and I thought she was about to join the live stream, but she unfortunately went into her crate. So sorry, I was just saying great tips. Thank you so much, and plenty to digest there. If we haven't got any questions from the audience, can't see any that's come through. Carrie, can you see any at all? So I've got plenty. I know we've got a few more minutes left, so if you'll indulge me for a second, I've just got a couple of quick ones for you. Let's start with something straightforward and easy. So Charlie, you mentioned multiple images on the product pages and making them contextual. What about SEO basics like image alt tags? What would you do? In that example, the product page of multiple images, do you also try and make those alt tags contextual? Do you pay them any heed at all, or what's your advice in that area?
So when it comes to clients, a lot depends on their system and what it's capable of. For an awful lot of clients, getting alt tags into their system for their products is not possible, and the effort of sort of working that system stops me doing something more important, like sorting out faceted navigation or adding schema or something like that. So it's about the ROI. If all things being equal, you can have them. Obviously, having them is great. And I would say that in contextual alt tags can be useful. So, for example, if you had I'm going to go back to my cast iron pan. If you have a cast iron pan and you have a couple of tags saying, cast iron pan, 12 inches side on, 12 inches, base of 12-inch cast iron pan, and then you can have cast iron pan cooking eggs or whatever it happens to be, then yeah, I would do that. A lot depends on the scale of it though. So if you're on a website selling hundreds of thousands of products, you're not going to be able to handwrite a bunch of alt tags. So just economies of scale prevents you from doing that. If you're a smaller site selling several hundred products, several hundred SKUs at any one time, then you can go ahead and do that because you can do it just part of your page creation process.
Yeah, for a bigger site, definitely a machine learning challenge. Probably use Google's own tools to label your images. Okay, that's great. But you touched on another area there, which I'd like to ask you both about, which was faceted search. So, when I first started optimizing, which was back in the day when I had dark hair, and it was a long time ago, faceted search was a big problem. I remember our first website we worked on was a motorcycle site with gazillions of products, and it was difficult, shall we say. Is that problem largely solved these days by CMS platforms, these new e-commerce platforms, or is it still a problem for SEOs? Himani, do you want to come in on it first?
I would say that it has been improving, but I would say that it is like, it is still the issue. But I would say that the impact is less now, that it is not that hassle these days. The platforms have been improving on that part.
It's getting better. What's your perspective, Charlie?
I'd say some CMSs have done a good job of improving things, but I agree with Himani that it's not 100% fixed at all. Partly because these platforms can be deployed in different ways and they can be used in many different contexts that they weren't necessarily originally envisaged for. And so you have lots of things happening which do prevent things. I think the combination of CMS is improving, people's understanding of using things like canonical tags, but also the URL parameters tool and things like that in Search Console. They tend to be the solutions I see people using better. And it's still a major problem for a lot of people because not everyone, I think a lot of time people don't, when they're building a site, they don't understand the repercussions of having these things. If we prevent crawling, does that stop products being seen? If we allow crawling and we've got all these different combinations, do we go for it? I've been helping one site, who shall remain nameless, in the last year, and they have if you try and crawl the site, I just break all the crawlers because it runs into millions of URLs, but they only ever have a couple hundred URLs on sale at any one time because they have completely uncontrolled faceted navigation. Yeah. And because they think it's important, they've come up with 25 different filters, and each of those filters has many options. And you add all those combinations together, even though they have some smart things like if you have multiple filters, it always comes up in the same order in the URL. It's still literally millions of potential pages of near identical content. So you have to rely on the URL parameters and things like that, because if the people building the system want to allow that flexibility, unless you're relying on JavaScript, which is great, just to reorder things, then you're always going to have URLs and you're always going to have someone managing it. Might not be hard, but you have to have someone managing the process.
Sure. Okay. So index bloat, spider traps, still a problem that give you headaches today, but perhaps slowly but surely these systems are getting better. Okay. I'm just touching on another area, probably before we sort of draw things to a close, and it's a bit of a bugbear of mine actually, which is content and the content you put on category pages in e-commerce. So you've got this nice product listings page, you've got all your products, and then as Himani, as you mentioned earlier, you can put in a nice bit of relevant text to help users and search engines understand what this page is all about. But of course, being SEOs, what do we do? I mean, everyone starts piling in lots and lots of text all over the place, hiding it behind tabs, putting it at the bottom of the page, putting it in collapsible sections to try and get as much relevant content into that page as possible. So, where do you guys draw the line? I know John Muller's sort of warned about this before and said, don't put too much content in. You could change the kind of the intent of the page. So, how much content would you put into a typical sort of e-commerce category page? What have you seen work? What have you seen not work? I don't know whether Himani, you started with that, so maybe you could pick up on that first.
Okay. So what happens is that, when I talk about marketplaces is like, they have a lot of, thousands and hundred thousands of products on their category pages. So it becomes difficult to put on content over there. So, marketplaces, it is another hassle because people don't read it actually. So to create a relevant content is a challenge for marketplaces. So what we do is we just identify the things that a person would look forward to when coming on the category page. So for marketplaces, it is always at the end of the all the categories, because people don't have time to read the content. And because marketplaces have this tendency of having a lot of products, there are something, almost we have seen tend to write like, say for example, 2 to 3 paragraphs minimum that we write on category pages. And if we talk about niche brands or D2C brands, there is only a bit of, it's like just a bit of introduction that we give, that the storyline, mostly it revolves around the storyline, as as we usually say that, people don't buy your products, they buy the stories around it. So for D2C brands and all of those other niche brands, we focus on storyline and try to balance out the story and the keywords, and we try to put it on the top so that people connect to the categories, why we have come up with a particular category and what it will have. That impacts a lot. So that that storytelling happens to be finished in just 1 paragraph, and that's how we keep it.
All right. So generally, you keep it to one paragraph. That's what. And you tend to, what you're saying, you tend to put it at the bottom of the page because people don't read it, or can it go? Does it depend on the client?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. What happens is, marketplaces, most of the time, what happens is marketplaces have the content at the bottom of the page. But for the D2C and niche brands, it is all about the story and the impact that they create on the entire website. So that's why, the first impression matters the most for such brands. And that is the reason why we strictly, follow this process of having the content on the top for niche and D2C brands.
Okay, that's clear. Thanks very much. And Charlie, what's your perspective on this? Can we shove 1,000 words in there like the good old fashioned days of SEO and get away with it?
So no, I'm thinking very similar to Himani in terms of I only think you need to have limited in there. The reason to have it is to add that little bit of context. I remember that John Mueller also said that time that having some descriptive copy on PLPs is important, because otherwise Google can't always tell what the page is about if it's just literally a list of links to products. And obviously they're beautiful looking links in a gallery style, but it's just a link thing. So it's adding that context. So you don't need much to be able to add that context at all. And I like Himani's point of telling a story with this, because you can write some content on there, but if you don't have a story to tell, then it just becomes very generic very quickly. So it's much more interesting, if nothing else, if you tell a story. It's much easier to put something together. What I tend to find is, a couple of sentences that say, here's what you're going to find on the page, here's why it's kick-ass, here's maybe where you can learn something more. That's the kind of like framework I tend to think of it with. Mm-hmm. And with that, it allows you to put a couple of in-context links in. So if you're on your page about jeans, women's, as I'm on a landing page, I'm on women's jeans, and I have subcategories of women's skinny jeans or jean leggings or whatever these type of things is. I'm going to quickly show my lack of expertise here. But if I do this, then I can put some in context links in, which makes more sense and obviously helps search engines put the 2 and 2 together about the section's about. It guides users and it works well. What I have seen work really well in women's fashion, which is why I use this as an example, is a lot of UK sites having an intro text when you can see the first sentence or two visible, and there's a more button, and that just drops down. And then there's a couple more sentences which might then do things and sort of show a little bit more information. And for those that need more guidance, you can say, if you're looking for a sizing guide, we've got it here. If you're trying to pick the right style of jeans, we've got you covered. That kind of thing. It's great content, it's helpful for users, but it's not too interruptive. Those that just want to see the products, it doesn't stop their journey, especially on desktop because it's a small part. On a mobile, you only show a little snippet and then most of it's hidden down behind the accordion or something like that. Yeah. So that's very much how I approach it. Just several sentences maximum, mostly.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. We're running out of time now, and I appreciate you've got clients to serve. So otherwise, I could keep you talking all day about e-commerce SEO. but I promised I won't. Charlie, last thing, in your presentation, you talked a lot about discontinued products, and you shared a really nice looking user flow there of a logic diagram of trying to decide how to handle discontinued products. And I also noticed you also talked about, I don't know, seasonal products and products that are temporarily out of stock. Or so is that something you work with? Is that your own thing? Is that something you can share? I just thought that was
no,
really nice.
I think that diagram is from a Leda Solis.
Okay.
I have my own one of those that I've put together, but there was a couple of things I did in it because it was specifically for a client, and I just didn't want to kind of make it to I wanted something that was a bit more generic, that maybe sort of did for the point. The thing for me with that discontinued stuff is that you have to have different processes. If something is seasonal, you have a different process to your stuff that's just out of stock. If it's out of stock and it's coming back, you treat differently to handling a discontinued product. And when it comes to discontinued products, there are a bunch of decisions you can make, and it's not one size fits all. Any diagram like that does a really good job of explaining sort of things, but you shouldn't just look at that and go, that's the only way to do things. And that's why I think take on a few different viewpoints and look at it and go, in my market, actually, I'm in this sector. This old page is actually really important because lots of people will still be looking for this because they haven't had to replace it for years. So I need to keep that live, even though you can't buy it anymore. Just as an example. So that's the key for me is, basically build your own flow diagram that everyone in your business can then follow.
Sounds great, like great advice, and something possibly we can follow up with in the community and in our ultimate guides. So like anything else, they always need to be updated. So with that, thank you both very much indeed. I think we're back with Tea Time SEO. Carrie's put the slide up. I can read it. Thursday, the 26th of August at usual time of 4:00. Bring your tea, bring your cake. I forgot my cake today. And then we're going to be talking about even more advanced e-commerce search engine optimization techniques. So maybe Charlie and Himani will join us and ask the speakers some difficult questions. No, I'm sure you just join us and join in the debate. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for everyone watching online. We'll be sharing the content as usual. And hopefully you'll catch the guys in the Optimizers community if you've got any other questions. Thanks very much, Charlie. Thanks, Himani. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.